Most of the time when I'm solving equations like this, I do the work first and then I use the graphing calculator to check it. But sometimes I like to switch things up. I don't like that glare, but there you go, that's better. So if you look at the function, when's it equal to 0 means when does it cross the x-axis, and then take a look at the graph. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 solutions. So we're looking for 8 solutions. The first thing to do is add 3 to both sides. So now it equals 3. Next up, divide both sides by 4. So it's going to equal 3/4. Now for getting rid of this square. So take the square root of both sides. And when you do, don't forget to put plus or minus the square root. That's part of the reason why there's so many solutions, because we have to consider the plus and the minus. And when there's a 2 in here, that means you have twice as many solutions as usual. Now this, I'm going to simplify a little bit. Cosine 2 theta equals plus or minus. The square root of 3, that can't be reduced, but the square root of 4 is 2. So this basically means if you were to look at the graph of cosine, from 0 to 2 pi, when does it equal the positive square root of 3 over 2? You go across, that's going to give us 2 solutions. When does it equal the negative square root of 3 over 2? Go across, that's going to give us 2 solutions. So just with that part right there, we've already got 4 solutions. Well, we don't have them, but I can see that there's going to be 4 solutions. And when this says 2 theta, that means that you should actually follow the graph out for 2 cycles. And there's going to be 2 more solutions and even 2 more solutions. So in total, there's 8 solutions. Now let's actually find them. So back over here, the next thing to do is take cosine inverse. So cosine inverse of square root of 3 over 2. What does that equal? So cosine inverse of square root of 3 over 2, that looks like it's pi over 6. So divide that by pi, change it to a fraction, it's 1/6, so that's pi over 6. Now also, what about cosine inverse of negative the square root of 3 over 2? So that, divided by pi, and change that to a fraction, and that one's 5 pi over 6. So this one was pi over 6, and then when you do cosine inverse of the negative radical 3 over 2, that was 5 pi over 6. Okay, those first 2 answers, that's what everything's going to be based on. So this one, that's pi over 6, and this one, that's 5 pi over 6. Now, what about this one and this one? Well, this one is to the left of 2 pi. So this one will be 2 pi minus, so this one was pi over 6. This one's going to be to the left of 2 pi, so it's going to be 2 pi minus pi over 6. And then that would be 12 pi over 6 minus pi over 6. That's 11 pi over 6. What about this one? Well, this one comes from this line going straight across. So this is 5 pi over 6. And this one is to the left of 2 pi. So that's going to be 2 pi minus 5 pi over 6. So this would be 12 pi over 6 minus 5 pi over 6 is 7 pi over 6. All right, we're getting close to done, believe it or not. Now with all of these solutions that I'm getting, that's all going to be 2 theta equals. So I need to move over here so that I've got some more room and start writing those down. So 2 theta equals pi over 6. 2 theta equals 5 pi over 6. That was the first two. These two. Then there was 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6. Two theta equals 11 pi over 6. All right, that's 4 solutions. Now, how do you get the next 4? So we now need to find these 4 right here. But these 4 right here come from taking these original 4, and then to move over, you need to add 2 pi. So basically we just need to take every answer that we just got, those 4, and add 2 pi. So there would be 2 theta equals, now take this one and add 2 pi. Pi over 6 plus 2 pi. The next one, 5 pi over 6 plus 2 pi. Just 2 more to go. 7 pi over 6 plus 2 pi. And 11 pi over 6 plus 2 pi. And then finally, I'm going to write the final answers in this box right here. So each one of these you still need to divide by 2. And when you divide by 2, that means this side needs to be divided by 2. So this one becomes pi over 12. The next one would be 5 pi over 12. And then 7 pi over 12. 11 pi over 12. What about when you add 2 pi? So this would be 12 pi over 2 plus 1 more, so that's 13 pi over 2. 13 pi over 6. And then divide by 2, and it becomes 13 pi divided by 12. This one would be 12 pi over 6 plus 5 more, so that's 17 pi over 6. And the final answer, when you divide, is 17 pi over 12. And just 2 more to go. This would be 12 pi plus 7 pi over 6. 12 and 7 is 19 pi over 6. 19 pi over 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more. Got just enough space. And then this would be 12 plus 11, so that's 23 pi over 6. And then when you divide both sides by 2, 23 pi divided by 12. So my perseverance finally paid off. I've found all 8 solutions.